Commission meeting on Monday, July 9th, 2018 at 7 p.m. in council chambers. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Let's have roll call to the board, please.
Chair Kevin Seifried,
Present.
Vice Chair Charles Ernst,
Present.
Commissioner Kenny Each,
Mark him excused, but we expect him to be arriving later.
Commissioner Jason James,
Here.
Commissioner Michael McDermott,
Present.
Commissioner Bob Pashon.
Here.
We have quorum.
Excellent, thank you very much. Members of the board, we have two sets of minutes for approval. Minutes for Tuesday, March the 6th, and then for Wednesday, March the 14th. I trust you've all read your sets.
Yeah, there was one item,
All right,
it was just in the vote. We showed a 6-0 vote that was not unanimous. It was on garages, parking not being counted.
oh, so you say it passed 5 to 1.
Yes.
All right, that would be on March the 6th. Last item then. All right, Marlene, if you can make that correction. Parking garage was 5 to 1, not 6-0. Okay. All right, so. All right, so let's amend this. Okay, Chair will call for a motion to approve the minutes of March the 6th.
So prove as amended.
All right,
Second?
seconded by, made by Mike McDermott, seconded by Bob Pashon. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, there we go. Marlene, Madam Secretary. All right, now, minutes of March 14th. Any corrections or additions to that page?
I saw none.
None? Okay, Chair will call for a motion.
I'm so moved.
All right, moved by Bob Pashon, second.
Just one second, I was not present at the meeting on 14th, and it lists me as seconding the,
Oh, that was
item.
interesting.
Chair call for motion to approve, which was made by Commissioner James, seconded by Vice Chair Ernst. I was not present at the meeting.
Ah, ha, 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 ha. So,
You show it, that's wrong. You show excused, but you don't, but you're involved in one of the motions?
you probably phoned it in. All right, so do we have a clue on, as to who made the second?
Not at the moment. I'll look into it and then present the
We'll
update to you
hold up
guys.
on approving these minutes.
All right, we'll put a hold on this approval until our next regularly scheduled meeting, unless you can come up with it before we're out of here tonight. No problem. All right? Okay, we'll put that aside. Do we have any communications tonight to the Planning Commission? Don't everybody from staff speak up at once.
No, sir.
None. All right, excellent, thank you. We have no continued public hearings. Before we open for public hearings, would the attorney for the commission please announce himself?
Oh, I'm Alexander Valenzuela.
And you work for,
I have my own office. I'm outside counsel for the city of North Miami, city of
Is it on?
Sorry,
turn that on.
should I repeat that? I'm Alexander Valenzuela. I have my own office. I'm sitting in for Gary Health, and is there anything
You
else you'd
said
like me
you
to
were
announce?
outside counsel?
Outside counsel for the city of North Miami.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.
All right, let me just run through this for a minute on something here. that's the resolution. We normally don't read the resolutions, so. All right, PC 13, we'll open the public hearing on this. Resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, adopting fiscal year 2018-2019 action plan under the Community Development Block Grant CDBG and Home Investment Partnership Grant home programs as required by 24 CFR 91.15 paren A paren 1, providing for an effective date and for all of the purposes. Staff report, please.
Yes, good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Tonight, this item before you, PC 318, and for the record, I'm Debbie Love with the Community Planning and Development Department. We are recommending, staff is recommending that you make recommendation to the City Council to adopt the proposed 2018-2019 action plan to transmit it to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for final approval. Tonight, Sarita Pinckney, our housing coordinator, is going to provide you an overview and answer any questions that you have and present some additional information on this item. Sarita?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sarita Pinckney. I'm the housing coordinator for Community Planning and Development Housing Division. As you may be aware, every year we submit the annual action plan to HUD, who's responsible for administering of the CDBG and home programs, which requires each entitlement jurisdiction to prepare an annual action plan outlining the needs and priorities for the funding year that will establish the unified vision of the community's needs. HUD describes the action plan as the comprehensive document which describes the city's overall needs and priorities relative to housing and community development. Each year, the action plan must be prepared and submitted to HUD for approval prior to the release of funds on or by August 15th of this year, 2018. In this upcoming fiscal year, 2018-2019, the city is projected to receive approximately $756,678 in CDBG funds and $300,908 in home funds. We have received a drastic increase in home funds of 31% by $92,464. And in CDBG, we received an 8% increase of about $57,700. The fiscal year 2018-2019 action plan funding will provide recommendations to support the priorities and strategies outlined in the draft consolidated plan. Prior to this meeting, we held two public meetings, one on the west side of the city on May 30th, 2018 at Sunkist Grove Community Center, and we also held one on the east side of the community on May 31st, 2018. These meetings were held to provide the community with what we recommend to propose for the upcoming fiscal year action plan, and also to solicit the public input. In addition to those meetings, we currently have a survey posted on the city's website requesting input from the citizens and any focus groups. On page 2 of the staff report, you'll find the budget table for the action plan, which outlines how we plan to utilize the funds for this upcoming fiscal year. HUD mandates that 15% of what they allocate goes to the program administration. So on line 1, the CDBG program administration, which is 15% of the $756,678, will be allocated towards administration. We have $424,676 that will go to housing rehab, which is really needed in the city. $50,000 will go towards economic development, which is also something that's really needed here in the city. $113,501, which is also what HUD mandates that we set aside 15% towards public services. Of that, $80,000 will go towards our CBOs, which is the community-based organizations, and $33,501 will go towards our YOBs, which is our youth employment program that we currently have going on here at the city. We have allocated $25,000 to capital improvement projects, and we've also allocated $30,000 to the elderly emergency repairs, which is also a much need here in the city, which gives us a total of $756,678. For the home funding, HUD mandates that only 10% of your allocation can go towards administration, which is $30,090. Of that, 15% also has to be set aside for our CHOTOs, which are community housing development organizations. And of that, we will be allocating $45,136. Towards single-family rehab, we have allocated $192,682. For our first-time homebuyers program, we have allocated $30,000. And for our tenant-based rental assistance, we have allocated $3,000, which brings us to the total of $300,908 for home funds. Of that, we also got $19,766.81 back from this year for 2 rehab projects that we completed, and we had 2 homeowners that sold their properties prior to their lien being released. So we were able to recoup those funds of the $19,766.81. So that gives us $1,077,352.81 that we have to spend for this upcoming fiscal year 2018-2019.
I have one question.
Yes.
Under the CDBG, we allocate $424,676 on housing rehabilitation. And then down below on line 9, for home single-family rehabilitation, we have $192,682. So that gives us $600,000+. Are these essentially the same programs?
Yes, they're the
Essentially
same programs,
pool
but
of
they're
houses and same
correct. They're 2 different
requirements?
funding sources.
2
So,
different sources, but
yes.
one pool of money for the list of applicants.
yes.
Okay. Yes,
could-
Mr. Reyes.
Have you started the application process yet for this cycle?
No, not for this upcoming
Right.
fiscal year. We have not.
What's your guess as to what
We
you
will
normally,
start September 1st.
September 1st? And last year, how many homes were you able to?
We're currently working on about 36 rehab projects. We've exceeded our elderlies. We have 10 that are in the pipeline. We currently are working on TBRA. You know, there was a fire here at the apartment complex about 3 weeks to a month ago. So we've been assisting those residents. We have probably about 15 of those that we're currently assisting, along with some others that we had in the pipeline. We also have going on first-time home buyers, which we've exhausted those funds this year. We've been able to assist 5 different families to become first-time home buyers.
Anybody that's who applied this past year, is that rolled over, or do you have to have them, do they
If
have
we
to
do
reapply?
have funds, we do roll them over
You do
into,
roll them over.
into the 18-19 fiscal year, yes.
Okay,
So
thank
they
you.
don't necessarily need to begin that application process all over again.
No, how we do the application process is so September 1st of last year was for this fiscal year, 2017-2018. So for 2018-2019, we'll open it up September 1st of this year for the next fiscal year. So the funds, if we don't utilize all the funds, they do roll over into the next fiscal year.
But again, they're thrown back into the pool, or are they prioritized for funding? Since they've already applied, based on if somebody comes along that has that meets the requirements more
They
than
go
they
into a
do,
pool.
they go
They
into
go
a
into a
pool.
pool, correct.
All right.
All right, relative to the fire a few weeks back, to the individuals that were forced out, what kind of services or support are they currently getting from the city?
We give them a one-time check for first month's rent and security deposit to find them a new place to live. They have to be able to show that they can afford the unit. And then we, in turn, do the eligibility check, and then we issue the check directly to the owner or the property. It's a one-time shot.
Okay, all right. And have we then met the needs of those evicted residents?
Yes, we are currently working diligently. We have maybe about 3 more that we're trying to get processed. They should be processed before the end of this week.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Does any other member of the commission have a question at this time? No. All right, in which case we'll then open the public hearing
Thank you.
and see where we are on the presenters for this year's projects. Public hearing is open. People wishing to speak to this matter are invited to step forward. We have 2 microphones. Each presenter will be limited to 2 to 3 minutes at most.
This is separate items for the CDGs.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
This is just.
Anybody wishing to speak on the CDBG items? Yes.
This is on the home improvement.
Haven't even started.
Yeah, see that, Kevin? It was fast, you know?
It's quick.
Yes.
Okay, young lady. Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. As you go over this multi-million dollars that we have in the CDBG funds, something stuck out, the $25,000 in capital improvement fund, and also the $33,000 that we take as administrative costs. I think that the city or this group should recommend to the council not to take that $25,000 into city capital improvement projects and move that over into the local nonprofit groups that are here tonight, or into the emergency funds for the elderlies, or for something else. The city is spending multi-million dollars worth of capital improvement projects throughout the city between the CRA and the city's money. That's $25,000 from the HUD grant that you're getting. Could go a lot further helping some of these small groups or the emergency funding for the rental and so forth than it will going into the pot for massive capital improvement projects, if that's in fact that it's just going to be included in that. And the other thing is that we take a 33 or a certain percentage amount for administrative costs. It's the way of reimbursing the city for certain employees. But I think since it's such a minimal amount of money, maybe the city should let the fund stay, don't take out the administrative costs or reduce it in half, and allow that money to go to more of the organizations, because this constantly comes out, and you'll see at the next council meeting where they said, oh, we wish we did more, we want to do more, but we're nickel and diming, we're taking our administrative fees out, we're taking our capital improvement fees out. The city's nickel and diming some of this fund. So let's put as much back into the real development, the real programs that make a difference in the community, whether it's the emergency rental, the senior citizens, or the groups that are going to be here tonight asking for additional funding. It's just something for you all to consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else wishing to speak to this? Hearing none, the public hearing on this is closed. Staff, I do have a question relative to the points Mr. Burns has raised. I understand the administrative fees, those are a HUD requirement, yes or no?
Yes.
Come on up to the microphone.
Yes, they are.
So that's not a discretionary issue?
No,
with-
it's
okay,
a HUD
that's
mandate.
mandated.
Yes.
Now, second item, the $25,000 capital improvement fund, where does that go?
Next year, it'll be going to a tot lot, which is on 4th Avenue, if I'm not mistaken, off of 127th Street. It's in really bad condition, and they will redo the tot lot to, give something for the kids to have to play safe. They don't have to play in the street. They can go to the park and be able to enjoy a tot lot in their community.
Is that gonna be fully funded out of this, or is this a partial funding for that project?
No, this is fully funded, and he also used other funds that he had from general fund, so he's leveraging his funding.
Who's he?
The Parks Director.
Parks Director. So
Yes.
effectively, this is, 50% or some other percentage of what it will cost to do the tot lot, and
Correct.
other funds then come from other parts of the Parks and Rec budget as best as can be managed. Is that
Yes.
a fair
Yes.
statement?
Yes.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any questions on those issues?
No, I have no problem with that analogy. Anybody else?
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
then
I do have a,
Mike?
yeah. How did the Parks program get into this CDGB home program? They're a separate entity within the city itself and have their own budget line items. So I'm thinking, why are we now sharing with them when I think Mr. Burns made a good point in that, you know, in looking forward to the next item on the agenda, there are some organizations here that certainly are underfunded or certainly don't get funded at all, that could benefit from that additional $25,000 being in the pot. I think it's much better be spent on that than, you know, I'm just wondering how Parks and Rec got 25,000 to do some kind of park, because 25,000 doesn't go very far. So how it got involved with Parks and Rec Department, when they have their own separate budget and have their own allocation that comes through the city, I think the money would be better spent on community organizations that, particularly some that aren't funded here, or those that are underfunded.
We identified the park because it was in really bad condition.
Why
And
don't we don't argue that. I'm just saying, why can't Parks and Rec do their own thing rather than taking from CDGB?
well, one of HUD's mandates is that a percentage should go to public, capital projects, public facilities. So the upcoming year, that is the project that we've, you know, adopted to take on.
So effectively, we've done a minimum set aside to meet a HUD requirement. without-
Correct,
Okay,
which is just the minimum.
yeah, I understand, because certainly it's a valid point. You have both the CRA and the city pumping money into capital projects.
Exactly.
It seems inappropriate to be taking 25,000 unless this meets a specific requirement of HUD.
Yes.
Is that a definitive requirement, or is that something that is optional? Usually, a lot of these CDGB projects, a lot of the requirements are, you know, as is. You know, you can. I don't think that's a basic requirement for it, is it, Tanya?
She said that it's a federal requirement.
A federal
Yeah.
requirement.
Okay.
So we're obligated in some way, shape, or form to have some set aside for a
Yes.
capital project. Okay. All right, anyone else have any questions for staff on this?
That's it.
All right. Then, Chair will call for a motion.
Also move.
All right. In favor, Mike McDermott moves. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Charlie Ernst. All in favor?
All right.
All right. Part one carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. Now we're on to PC 418. This is, get the glasses set up here. This is a resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving the award of fiscal year 2018-2019 Community Development Block Grant CDBG funds to not-for-profit community-based organizations, CBOs, as required by CFR 200.458, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. Now, staff, you had suggested earlier that the statement as required by 2 CFR 200.458 be deleted. Can we get a clarification on that at this time?
Alex, would you like to address this quickly? The reason that's deleted.
Is it the citation is incorrect? Yeah. And I don't have the correct one, but if you'd like to replace it, that can be done before it goes to the
It
commission.
should be corrected for the record before the evening is resolved, okay? So
We will do
try and-
that.
Is
Try
that
and
it?
get the citation,
Yes, sir.
All
We'll
right,
get
then
the
we can-
correct citation, the attorneys will get the correct citation.
and then before the evening is out, we'll read it into the record so we keep that clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, having said that, can we have the report of staff, please?
Yes, sir. Item, again, Debbie Love, for the record, Community Planning and Development. Item PC 418, we are requesting that, again, that you make approval to recommend to the mayor and council to review all the proposals from the CBOs, or community development, community-based organizations who submitted requests for the fiscal year 2018-2019 Community Development Block Grant Funding. This is the item we spoke previously about. And review the evaluation committee's recommendations for the award and render a final approval. Once again, We have Sarita Pigney, our Horizon Coordinator. She's going to present this item in a little more detail, and you can ask any questions once her presentation is complete. We'll be happy to answer any questions for you.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Good evening again. On May 14th, we advertised our RFP, request for proposals, for our 2018-2019 community-based organizations. Of that, we started an advertisement also to have a mandatory workshop. At that workshop, we discussed how to apply for this actual grant. We went line by line, what the requirements are by HUD, what's stated as a community-based organization, which is not-for-profit, 501c3, and the different criterias that needed to be met. The community-based the Community Planning and Development Department scheduled presentations by the various CBOs that submitted proposals to the city for the funding. These presentations typically would have taken place during the scheduled meeting, and we just want to apologize to that, that we needed to reschedule due to the HUD mandate that we have to have everything submitted to them by August 15th, which is the deadline. So if we would have moved it any farther, we would not have met that deadline. So just to say that. HUD, again, mandates that 15% of the total CDBG allocation has to be set aside toward public service activities. And of those public service activities, $113,501, which is 15% of the $556,678, has been allocated towards public service activities. Of that, $33,501 will go towards our summer youth program, and $80,000 of that will go towards our CBO community-based nonprofit organizations. On the date of the workshop, the mandatory workshop, we had 34 CBO participants that attended. Of the 34, 18 submitted applications on time, and of the 18, 12 were recommended to be funded. The evaluation committee made its recommendation. The evaluation committee included staff from our Public Works Department, Risk Management, the Office of the City Attorney, Emergency Management, and the Finance Department. Each proposal was evaluated on the following HUD criteria. 1, the project must be eligible and meet one of the 3 broad national objectives. The principal benefit and low has to go to low and moderate income persons, prevents or eliminates slum or blight, addresses an urgent need or problem in the community. 2, the project must fit into the community's priorities set out by the City of North Miami's fiscal year 2018-2019 consolidated plan. 3, they must have prior experience with CDBG related activities and or prior experience with other grant programs and proven record carrying out similar projects in the community. 4, they must show the financial capacity and financial stability as indicated by funding sources and amounts over time. They must have adequate staffing, they must have organizational strength, and they must show performance measurement to indicate program impact on community and persons that they will be assisting. Attached is a list of the community-based organizations that submitted their applications, which is the database table, along with the CBO proposal scores for each organization. The attached table has the name, the address, the brief description, and each proposed activity that shows that they will be able to meet the CDBG national objective and the amount of funding that they have requested. In addition, the table also includes the funding recommendations by the city's administration. Based on the evaluation committee's review and assessment, staff requests that the planning commission hears presentations and accepts the committee's recommendations. We have the CBOs here who will present no more than 3 minutes of their organization and what their organization will entail and how they will be able to meet the needs of the city. If the board doesn't have any questions, go ahead.
I
Go right ahead.
suspect there's a few questions.
Bob, you may go.
Yeah, the criteria is fine, I mean, obviously. But, so when the members of the committee looked at the criteria, were these 7 items weighted?
Yes,
And how was the weighting done?
on a scoring system. And if you look
So I
at.
understand the scoring system, but all I see is a total number by each evaluator for the organization.
The score is between 1 and 10 for each criteria. So for each one on the scoring table,
So the maximum score is 70?
I'm sorry?
So the maximum score would be 70? There's
No,
7
it's-
criteria.
Right, it's 7 criterias. However, in those criterias, you have 1, and then you may have 3 or 4 bullet items that also follow. So they are able to receive up to 100 points. So if you look at the first CBO proposal score, you'll see that someone scored a 90. So they didn't achieve all of the score, 100, but out of everything, one of the committee members recommended that they felt that they met at least 90% of what we need for the city as far as community base.
The reason I asked the question is, but I've got 20 years of doing this with scholarship-based organizations. And there's an amazing disparity among the judges. There's some people that got twice as many points as somebody else. And my experience has always been that's a bit statistically improbable, that it's not, the organization's the organization. Some people, the reason I ask you about the weighting is so that people don't arbitrarily provide more weight to one of the elements than another, and that would skew the final results. But if they're properly weighted and added up, I don't know how you can get scores of 90 and 49.
You may have someone who didn't answer the question. They may have left it blank, or they may have given a partial answer. They may not have submitted all of the documents that were required.
But then they both would have been 49, or they both would have been 90.
True.
Well, I think he's directing to, correct me if I'm wrong, I'll give you an example. You're directing this to each one of the department heads, because one department head had a 41, when the other department head had like a 71
Or a 90.
or a 90.
Which
So that caught my attention too, as to the disparity. We have no figures in front of us to tell us why that one particular department head only scored a 41 while his cohort scored him a 74. That, I think, is why Mr. Pinchon is saying that there's some skewing there that doesn't add up, that we have concerns about.
The statistics are wrong. You've got 86 and 43 on the same organization. You've got 98 and 56. And so, and the problem is, those are big-time results, because what you did was you stack-ranked each of the organizations based upon their average score. So a disparity like that affects how much money these organizations get.
Right.
And we don't get, we have no opportunity to see how that shook out.
Yeah,
And it's not, there's no accusations here about anything other than it's remarkably inconsistent, and it makes a big difference to the people here looking for some money.
yeah, statistically, it's hard to justify.
Does staff have any insight into this?
Silence is deafening.
She's making, the boss is making her way up to the desk.
She's asking for additional information.
I
I'm
think, yes,
Tanya Wilson
Tanya, that-
Sejour, and the
yeah.
planning director for CPND. So the process that she describes, CPD is actually not one of the participants on the committee, but we do oversee and we monitor the responses. You'll notice with the initials, it's from the legal department all the way through to Public Works. I do hear what you're saying about the statistical response, but the human element is that each individual is given the opportunity to assess the submittal and to give their response based on the information that's before them. So you're not going to have consistent, uniform scoring when individuals are subjective. I think that part of the statistical profile you can't control. All 5 people were given the same exact information. All 5 people were asked to give their scoring or assessment, and these are the numbers that were generated based on the individual account. We're not one of the scorers, but we did oversee the process, and we know that everybody had equally the same information, and the numbers are what they genuinely did respond on.
What information did, oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
So basically, it's a subjective manner for which each one of the department heads will look at it.
Correct.
I guess we try to simplify it by, for instance, we used to get the financial breakout per organization. I assume they look at that also. But we don't know how much that weighs in each one of the department heads' decision-making as to why he would have given them a lower score or a higher score, or whether or not he favors that group, how much subjectivity is involved in that, rather than objectivity. So, I mean, yes, there's always going to be some subjectivity involved in it, but again, just based on these numbers, it's not in-depth enough for us to make a determination that it's a fair assessment, and I think that's what Mr. Pinstone's pretty much bringing up.
What information was provided to the people who did vote?
So there's a packet that has a series of questions that they have to respond to, and literally the responses over the years have been that thick. And
Yeah.
then the evaluation committee goes through each of the sections, and they peer it to the criteria that's provided by HUD. And based on that, they have to give their individual scores across the 5. I think with every statistical pool, there's always an outlier. That's what I see throughout that. Even though there's a cluster, I think the fairness is that there's an average. And the average is what generated the ranking of the scores from highest to lowest. Not just the individual, but overall, there's an average that's been assessed.
So we're basically, we have to take it on good faith then that each one of the department heads assessed everything to make sure that they were following every guideline
Correct.
and that there are no shortcomings in any one of the objectives. All the objectives were made, all the
Correct.
way from, in other words, those that were approved funding, there were no check marks against them as far as not fulfilling what the requirements, correct?
Absolutely.
We have to assume
Absolutely.
that. That's
Yes,
what
sir.
we're assuming.
Yes, sir.
So we're going on assumptions and trust.
Yeah.
You're
Tanya,
going on a criteria that your committee has said has been met in the cases of the scores that you have before you.
Let me take a crack at this. So legal was the first column, right? Is that what you're telling us?
You have your scoring. Correct. So that LJ, I believe, is Linda Julian from the legal department, city attorney's
City
office.
So they're in the first column.
Correct.
And the second column would have been
From Public Works,
Public Works. And the third column,
also from Public Works,
so they had 2 shots at this. The fourth column,
is from Emergency Management.
Emergency management,
Who's that?
that the law
I
enforcement?
think that's
or-
Cynthia Ramos.
Mhm.
This is
Yes.
the,
Is it, what department's that under?
Emergency
Emergency.
management, so they give you the hurricane updates, the preparation, get ready for any natural disasters. You get constant tweets and email blasts from our emergency management division. That's where your EOC is located whenever you have.
Is that in, what department's that under?
I think they're under police. It's a
Pardon?
division of
Police.
police, emergency
Okay.
management.
And the last column was,
Is the police department.
that's police department, okay.
So the police get two shots at it.
So the city attorney's office and finance were where?
Well, finance didn't get into this one, did they?
Well, that's what it says in the staff report.
Is this one finance? Or LO?
City attorney is the first column, which is
Yeah.
LJ.
We got that.
Our
Public
finance
Works,
department.
Public Works, Emergency Management, and Police.
So was finance department involved in this evaluation process?
Finance is the second column, which is YW.
Not
So-
Public Works.
So not public works?
No.
Right.
So that was finance.
Our third column is public works, which is the motor pool, falls under the motor pool.
Motor pool?
Fourth column is emergency management, the Office of EOC. And the fifth column is the police department.
Yeah, I think perhaps citing public works as being under the motor pool may raise some eyebrows because one would wonder what the motor pool would have to do with this. So I'm assuming it wasn't, you know, the mechanics that sat down and
No.
took a vote at this, okay?
No,
This
he's
is-
not a
it's- Not that I would question their judgment because some of them have a good street sense for what goes on.
What's the name?
But you perhaps, as we take a look at some of this, it seems, just reading these numbers, that Public Works and Emergency Management tended to score on the low side. And police, finance, and legal, certainly police and legal were on the high side, and finance was just a little bit lower in looking at this. Now, is there, you know, I don't want to put words in your mouth. However, is there an element in this that perhaps indicates a lack of experience with what the funding agencies actually do?
I would think with a motor pool.
A lack of experience on the part of the evaluator?
Well, yeah, but how well advised are these evaluators with,
Local agencies.
yeah, with these agencies? I understand where the police department might well be very, very well informed. And I understand legal would not be informed at all, but they look at the HUD requirements. So, if you know how to write the sentence correctly, you'll score very highly in their book. And I can understand that. So now we're left with how the other three arrived at their decision-making, and if we understood that, we'd probably be a lot more comfortable with this.
Is it the Public Works Director? Is it an administrator working in hand with the Public Works Director? Because I
Yeah,
know
this
the
is a
Public Works
staff
Director
person. Yeah,
has
this
in
is
the
not
past
Whistler. This is
been
an
a part
actual
of the
staff person.
process. And because when we used to get the full comprehensive report, we were able to see who the committee members were, not so much by name, but identified as the Public Works Director or the city attorney or a department head. So, you know, I would feel comfortable knowing that it's someone who's done this before or has experience with dealing with this.
These are the same people that were on the committee for the last 2 years. We only replaced one because she retired. So these are the same people who have been on the CBO committee with the exception of one.
So at least they've had two previous bites of the apple at this
Yes.
one.
Correct. And there's a thorough workshop with a recap of the requirements, the criteria, they fully understand, they comprehend, they go through an assessment of each of the submittals. So these are capable, very sharp City of North Miami staff. I want to say that in their defense. We don't know each of the individuals, but I'm very familiar with them. They
We're
can
not
synthesize and
disparaging
assess.
their mental faculties. I was fishing for an understanding of the disparity in scores, and I'm wondering if it's because they have less hands-on familiarity with these various agencies at what we would call the street level.
And again, my response to that would be,
Yeah.
I think they have familiarity, having
you'd
been
say
given
that
a bite
they-
at the apple last year and
I just-
having heard from us internally about the monitoring and compliance.
Yes.
They're able to assess how they handled the funds last year for those that are repeat requesters. So I think they're experienced and they're informed as to each of the organizations that are represented here.
Okay. Go ahead, Charlie.
Again, you understand that we have to take this at face value, because again, as Kevin mentioned, we don't necessarily know everything about the organization either, so we're pretty much kind of thrust into the same role as they are, but we also have to assume that they have a little bit better, more knowledge about it and had the chance to research this more so than we did. So when we're making our decisions and granting the amounts of money to give to each organization, we don't have a complete knowledge of those organizations, only what we see from the presenters as they come up and present their programs to us. Again, I want to go back to the fact that in the past, we did receive a lot more information prior to each one of these sessions. They gave us a breakdown into the organizations. We were able to read and get a better feel of what they were bringing to the table. And we weighed a lot of our decisions on what we saw in their presentations. So, you know, we're getting secondhand presentations from staff that we normally in the past were able to get a more comprehensive review of each one of the organizations, making it a lot easier for us to feel better or not to feel good with the way that we had to disperse funding.
This year, we streamlined the process and we had it online. The application process was online. So that's why you don't have all of the paper and all the budget reports and everything that you normally get, is because this year we tried to save a few trees and we had the application process online.
Yeah, but I think what Charlie's trying to say, that paper is something that we used in the past, so we're dealing with less input and less information than we did last year. And that's important as we go forward as to how we make a decision.
Well, all right, we can't beat this one to death.
I'm willing to proceed with the information we have and to make our recommendations based on staff's, you know, putting full value and trust in what they've given us to make this determination. Because we do have to move forward to get this funding to these organizations. But to everyone that's here, understand that we would have liked to have seen a lot more of what each one of you presented to the judges, as you might want to call them, or to the committee members that made the determinations. So we did not have that information at hand, and we are basically going to go ahead and make our decisions with what information we have in front of us tonight. That's all I can,
Yeah.
you know, pretty much
Flying a
say.
little blind, so to speak.
Yeah, one of the things, Tanya, looking at this process that I think the commissioners would have appreciated in advance would have been the financial reports of the various organizations, the analysis of their client services, how many are actually residents of North Miami, how many organizations are actually based in North Miami, some analysis of the legacy institutions that we have here, and, you know, a sense of their overall results, if that's possible in some instances. Not all of these organizations, we understand, can produce definitive results. But certainly, if we talk about feeding programs, we can certainly count the number of meals delivered, not necessarily the number of young people that join a program for a while and drop out and don't finish high school. But, you know, these are things that we want to try to look at and have a somewhat broader based appreciation for who can accomplish what under what circumstances. Now, we understand all these organizations have other opportunities for funding. We also know that the cost of accounting to justify some of these grants is extraordinarily high proportionate to the amount of money they're actually going to get. And so, you know, unfortunately, when an organization gets $4,500 and we realize we've only got 80,000 to play with, proportionally, the accountant gets a really good chunk of that to prove where the $4,500 went. And that proof is part of the evaluative process at the other end of the spectrum. And, you know, so we kind of are trying to weigh the merits of some of this. And I feel we perhaps are coming up short on the hard numbers that we would be more comfortable with. But we understand that the housing agency itself was not a voting member of this, merely was involved in tabulating scores, and CP&D was responsible for the training program, and I know you're trying to maintain, you know, arm's length distance in order to be fair and objective, and certainly we appreciate that. We're not in any way being disparaging relative to those efforts. We do decry the lack of hard data in the packet. You know, running the financials and some hard numbers on participants and, you know, percentage of city residents would not require, you know, 100 trees. But recognizing the limitations of staffing, you know, it is what it is. Now, the chair has a question for the commissioners. We can do one of two things here. Because staff has alluded to the presenters as part of the staff report. We can have the agencies take the 2 to 3 minutes and each make their presentation and move on, and then when that's finished, we can open the public hearing for anyone wishing to speak to this issue before we take a vote. Or if you desire, we can bypass the presentations and move to adopt. What is your feeling? And I'll let each of you answer that before we proceed.
I'll go. I would like more information, but I don't think we're gonna get it tonight. And I think that's the point you're trying to make. You know, I went through every one of these organizations because of lack of information. I went and looked for websites. I went and looked for social media sites. I went to try to find information. How long have you guys been in business? Who do you serve? And there are some people that had wonderful websites, and there are some people that could have been a missing person. There's no information in the wide world web on some of these businesses. And I don't know whether that's just a lack of sophistication in running a business, or I don't know what else I don't know what's behind door B. But all I know is I went and looked, and I can't find anything. So I don't know, after listening to a 2 or 3 minute presentation, and I can ask the questions, how long have you been in business? What percentage of your people are North Miami residents that you serve? I mean, I'd like to have seen some of that. Particularly those people that were not a previous grantee. I know nothing about them. If you were granted dollars in the past, at least there's some type of a track record that we've had to deal with. And that says something rather than nothing. But when we have people that have not been granted in the past, for whatever the reasons were, either they didn't apply, they're brand new, they didn't make the cut, whatever that is, but there's a lot of lack of information for me. So I think the chairman's point is, we could spin our wheels up here trying to get whatever nuggets we can get from a presentation and listening to the public, or just blind faith and hope to God the 5 people did their work right, and go from there.
And so, which side of the coin are you on? That does beg the question now. You say
I'm sorry to go
the fence is there. And
sorry
so,
to have gone around the track without actually
Yeah.
answering that.
Yeah, that is, I noticed that, Bob.
But
You are our ace researcher, and so I just thought
So I don't know what's to be learned. I don't know that I can learn anything in 2 minutes that I would then have something substantial to say that I think these people are ranked too highly. I mean, I've got all kind of problems with the process for lack of information that we've gotten and for the disparity in the scores that were granted by the evaluators. So I think it is what it is at this point. There's a bit of a rush to get this through city council so that we can meet all the filing deadlines. So I think we probably take it upon staff's recommendation and move forward.
Mr. James,
Yeah, I'm okay with moving forward with staff's recommendation.
Mr. Ernst,
I agree also, because we just, you know, I've already stated pretty much my thoughts on it. And, you know, let's just go ahead and go with staff's recommendations and trust that they did. And I would hope that in the future, we rectify this and that we go back to getting that information ahead of time so that we can, if we, you know, if we need to move things around or change our preferences or whatever, or recommendations, we can. But I couldn't do that tonight with not knowing a lot more than what we would get out of a 3-minute presentation. So let's just go ahead and move on, you know.
all right, Mr. McDermott?
Yeah, I think the problem is that if we had the proper information, we could have asked some pertinent questions regarding service, quantities, accountability. There's a lot of things that we could have asked if we had more information. Unfortunately, to the detriment of some people, we're sort of, as I said, flying blind. Because I have some questions about who got what, and to what degree, particularly people that I tried to run a few searches on, and like Bob, I wasn't able to find anything that really substantiated anything that related directly to North Miami. And right now, I think that everybody who would come up, we'd spend 2 hours listening to everybody and public comment. But if we don't have the information to go and ask the right questions, you know, I mean, it just becomes so I think of those two alternatives, I just think we have to go forward and hopefully that somebody corrects, corrects all of this for next year.
All right, the chair will call for a motion to adopt the recommendations of staff.
Excuse me, Chairman and Commissioners,
Yes.
if I may, I'm 40 weeks pregnant, and I think that it's incredibly important in order to make use of the time that we were allotted today in order to answer your specific questions. Perhaps we won't take all 3 minutes, but if you have the specific questions, I have 3 down. I think everybody that came here in order to make that presentation should be able to answer that. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to answer the specific questions that you have so you can make a more informed decision.
The inherent conflict here is that the planning commission is reduced to a rubber stamp functionary for the benefit of a government deadline.
I totally understand, but at least I speak for myself. Again, I went through great strides to be here tonight, and I've sat through an hour of, deliberations and regular government proceedings that we could be all understanding of. And there's other nonprofit organizations here that I'm sure can answer your specific questions to make sure that you can make a better recommendation and answer the questions that you have.
If we do that, I think we've opened the door to a regroup.
Yeah, exactly. You can't have one without the others.
Well, if we do that, then we'll limit the presenters to the first 11 that were grant recipients.
Okay, and Mr.
Yeah.
Then you won't find out how the process is done for those who didn't make it. See, let-
We can't do that. No, sir, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, well, listen,
No.
we may be, I'm new to the game.
No, right, I agree with
So
you.
my scores are low
I'm
because I
agreeing
didn't write
with
the things that you
You do.
require.
Yes, you do.
But my work speaks for itself.
No, right.
I'm second to none on my work.
Right, that's
And,
why we're
and,
doing,
and if you go forward with that, you're gonna miss the opportunity
right.
to find out what type of work we do.
You're absolutely right, and,
Okay?
and,
A
and,
lot of people spend a lot of time preparing for this.
no, I understand.
And for you to brush us off. you
You're
know, that's not
absolutely
right.
correct.
Mr.
You
Chair,
are,
through-
you're absolutely
through
correct.
you, Mr.
If we,
Chairman?
if we would have to allow everyone that's here to make their presentation. And if we do it for one, we have to do it for all.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And I think,
Mr.
you know, I don't know how else we can get around this.
Mr. Chairman?
We've already stated that they're allowed.
Yeah,
Charlie.
sir, we're not, you have to understand our position. Our position is that we're not brushing you off at all. It's just that, for some of the commission up here, we just don't have sufficient information to really give proper judgment. And I think that we have to go on whatever staff provides us at this point in time. However, this goes before the city council coming up, and certainly there's another bite of the apple there.
All right, we have two choices. The chair will call for a motion. You can move this one way or the other. I'm patient.
Sure. Well, if I make a motion, certainly it could either pass or fail. We've already stated that we're going to allow them to make presentations. I'm going to move that we allow each one of the applicants that are here to make a presentation to go ahead and make their presentation.
All right, second to the motion.
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion is made by Stearns, seconded by Bob Pashon. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. First presentation from the Haitian Neighborhood Center, Saint La Incorporated.
How much time does each applicant have?
2
2 minutes.
2 minutes for the motion.
Sorry, missed it.
Good evening. My name is Wilbert
Motion was
Laurent.
for 2 minutes. Yes, sir.
Yes, good evening. My name is Wilbert Laurent, representing Santla, the Haitian Neighborhood Center. I'd like to thank you for the invitation, and on behalf of Santla, I also want to take the opportunity to thank you for your great support. Your input has allowed us to efficiently continue to meet our goal of providing quality job opportunities to the resident of Miami, but more importantly and more specifically to the resident of the great city of North Miami. As I should mention, the employment program at Santla has a very successful rate of placement, because from July 2017 to June 2018, a total of 2,258 clients have been served, and 1,735, or 70% of them, are from the city of North Miami. And from those who were referred, more than 62% of them were successfully placed in different companies and organizations. So your input to our program is extremely important, and we could not have done all this without your support, which is the reason why I encourage the CDBG to continue to invest in our effort to better assist the residents of North Miami. Thank you.
Any questions? All right,
What was,
next,
I'm sorry, what was your service numbers again? Could you?
70%.
Yes, 77% of all the clients served at Santla are from the city of North Miami.
And how many total clients?
1,735 clients, sir.
Very impressive.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Ladies of Valor Empowerment Love.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could interrupt real quick.
You may.
Would it be necessary that we have to list the grant requested and what staff recommended? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Ladies of Love, let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Lady Alud Pierre. I'm the founder of the Ladies of Valor Empowerment, where the Youth of Valor Empowerment program was birthed. The Youth of Valor Empowerment is located in the city of North Miami, and we are currently serving girls attending public school residing in North Miami only. The Leadership Development Program, our goal is to ensure that more girls are graduating from high school instead of dropped out with early pregnancy. More girls are headed to college. More girls becoming the next generation of future women leaders for tomorrow. Standing next with me, I'm going to let her take one of the minute, is Yovi Mart Mete, our group leader, who recently graduated high school from the city of North Miami. Summa cum laude, with highest honor, with Superintendent Cavallo Certificate of Distinction. Without the Yovi program, none of this would have been possible. The Yovi program, the minimum qualification is only attending public school from the age of 14 to 18 with free or reduced lunch, and we are located in the city of North Miami. Yovi Mart Mete, group leader, you take it from there.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yovi Mart Mate. Yovi stands for Youth of Valor Empowerment. I'm here representing the 2018 Yovi 15, which means that 15 of us who have been attending Yovi graduated from North Miami Senior High School on June 5th, 2018. Majority of us graduated with summa cum laude, like me. I also graduated with Superintendent Diploma of Distinction. And please continue to support our program. We are the future women leaders of tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Very well done. All right, item 3, Florida Immigrant Coalition. Do we have a speaker for the Florida Immigrant Coalition? Come on up, sir, state your name, tell us where you're working, and will item 4, Nene, please be lined up and ready.
Hi, my name is Ivan Parra. I'm working with Florida Immigrant Coalition. And we are applying for this grant to continue assisting residents of the city of North Miami applying for citizenship. There are 320,000 people eligible in Miami-Dade County to apply for citizenship, and only 32,000 are applying per year. So we are bringing a good service to the residents of the city of North Miami. And the cost of the fee, $2,500, is too much for people, plus lawyer. So we are serving people with direct services. We think that it's possible helping these people to become fully integrated to the society. I mean, just fully integrated, become citizen and vote. So we really think this is a huge program that we need to keep going. Any question?
How many of your applicants reside in the city, do you know?
Yes, no, we don't know exactly the numbers here, but every time that we organize in community centers with the city, hundreds of people are coming. We don't know exactly the number, how many people are eligible in the city of North Miami, but last year we served 500 people in the city.
You did 500 people in the city?
In the city of North Miami.
Not necessarily residents, but they came to the workshops in the city.
Yeah, but most of them are residents, and we ask for ID. If they are not residents, they are high priority. So, but we serve everyone. And we can't, if we can't finish the process, the 21 pages application form in the workshop, we continue we finish at the office.
All right, thank you. No, all right. Item 4, Nene, do we have a speaker for Nene?